Y'all got another sign to replace. Frederica and Ponce de Leon. Good grief, don't people know how to drive anymore? Now this is recent. Downhill in Ponce de Leon. Whatever the heck the name. Ah, there's an address for you. Right there, storm drain. How the heck did that get tore up? Some idiot not knowing how to drive?
The track record of the internet, for example, is complex. It has created many new job roles, even as much of the wealth generated has gone to a handful of billionaires. But the productivity gains it was once lauded for have slowed down across many economies.
So AI is up there in terms of potential impact, but it's also really fast, right? It's coming at us much faster than electricity did. For example, that was a big deal in the early 20th century, but that took about 20 or 30 years to roll out fully. AI already, I mean, within a few days, ChatGPT was affecting jobs around the world, and I think within 5 years, the effects are going to be quite profound in many places.
Watch this. I mean, why is this person sitting in the crosswalk, huh? Excuse me? Could you back your car up? Don't block the crosswalks. Ah. What?
And auto dismantler last week. It was sitting idle when it spontaneously caught fire in the yard. Unable to move it to a safer location, crews had to put the fire out on the spot. It was blocked in and surrounded by millions of dollars in salvage vehicles, including Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and Bentleys. The vehicle was salvaged due to flooding from Florida. The district fire department tagged Tesla CEO Elon Musk in the tweet, but he hasn't replied to it. This is not the first time they have extinguished a Tesla. In January, a Tesla Model S car battery caught fire on Highway 50. It required 6,000 gallons of water to put it out.
My God. People do not know how to drive at all in this city. You kiss my butt. Pull over here. That's Ponce de Leon, North Avenue.
Posting or liking something on this platform, we will fund your legal bill. No limit. Please let us know. The comments in that post were then filled with people making their cases. Libs at TikTok, for example, they pointed to a case of Kara Lynn, who was allegedly fired for just following the page of Libs of TikTok and other conservatives on Twitter. Gina Carano, a former star of Disney's show The Mandalorian, she responded as well, and she wrote this: "I think I qualify." Now, you might remember Carano was infamously fired from Disney. Why was that? Well, she shared on social media in 2021 her view that the Nazi atrocities against the Jews are a warning of what happens when political hatred is allowed to run rampant. And she reshared a post that said this, quote, "Jews were beaten in the streets, not by the Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors, even by children. Because history is edited, most people today don't realize that to get to the point where Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews, the government first made their own neighbors hate them simply for being Jews. How is that any different from hating someone for their political views?" Now, a hashtag then followed, "Fire Gina Carano," and it went viral. Disney let her go without fully explaining why, but then, Disney made a big mistake, and they allegedly and accidentally sent her an email saying it was following the online movement to have her fired. Don Jr., another person you might know, the son of former President Donald Trump, he even responded to Musk's post, and he wrote this: "I've got a big one for you. Where do I send the bill?" We know as well that major organizations like the World Health Organization, the FBI, and many, many others were actively involved in online censorship campaigns. Some of them were working with social media companies,
including
to stop the
YouTube.
so-called infodemic. Some were actively communicating with Twitter on who and on what to censor. And guess what? All of them might be sued now. Now, Musk has been actively responding to many people bringing their stories forward, and it looks right now like he might have a few legal cases on his hands already. Now, look, on its face, you'd think this would be an expensive promise for Musk to be making. Imagine the lawyer fees someone would have to pay going after, like, Disney or really any wealthy figure in general, let alone a government organization. In many cases, lawsuits can take years. You have to pay the entire time. But in reality, well, this could be a major win for X. It's a way to defend the company's users and their advertisers from outside pressure. Now remember, one of the bigger hurdles for the platform was that it was losing advertisers, and Musk blamed this on political activists who were pressuring corporations to stop advertising on the platform, because mainly of Musk's stance on free speech. And there's the overall problem that some people are just not comfortable posting their views online. Political tweets can get you canceled. Even liking a page or a funny picture can get you fired. Anyone who dares post their political views on the platform, they put a lot at risk. And this type of censorship by threat, a silence through duress, is destructive to a platform like X, which is dependent on people posting their views. Look, at the end of the day, it's a social media platform. It relies on user-generated content. People posting their views on the platform, that is the product. And if people are too afraid to post their views or to even like or follow people who post theirs, well, the value of the company is gone. The legal attack system that Musk is launching right now, it's a way to defend the main product of the company, free speech.
It took them long enough to put this wheelchair ramp in. It's ridiculous, A bitch you complain about shit. Just keep hitting them with a damn 2x4 till they get tired of it.
Massachusetts declared a state of emergency due to a surge of illegal immigrants in the state.
We're declaring an emergency here in the state because there is an emergency here in the state. The numbers that we're seeing of individuals, of families who are coming into our state is unprecedented.
Massachusetts is severely lacking resources while struggling to keep up with the influx. Governor Maura Healey wrote a letter to Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas calling on Washington to expedite work authorizations for illegal immigrants and provide additional fundings. Massachusetts shelter programs currently holds more than 20,000 people, an 80% increase from a year ago. According to Healey, there were 100 families seeking shelter every day in July, and is costing taxpayers a staggering $45 million a month to make sure the state-sponsored program continues. As Massachusetts is running low in its resources, New York City is looking to expand its capacity. A new shelter for 2,000 illegal immigrants, construction starts as early as Monday, is planned for Randall's Island's kiddie soccer fields. Officials said that the state will pay for it without specifying the cost. Last October, it cost the Big Apple at least $625,000 to build a shelter on the same island off Manhattan, but it was soon shut down due to a lack of use. Those who oppose the new plan said that New York City children will lose thousands of hours of recreation program. An adult sports league would also be canceled as a result of it. Around 100,000 illegal immigrants have arrived in the city since 2022, and Washington has contributed over $142 million to supply the city's demand. Sam Wong, NTD News.
Texas taking a closer look at how Texas is handling the illegal immigration influx. Here's how Congressman Joaquin Castro describes it.
The clothing of people, including kids, that's stuck to the wire, literally stuck to the razor wire. They're forcing Border Patrol to stay away from some of these areas when it's the Border Patrol that actually has responsibility for all of this process.
Texas has installed buoys along the Rio Grande River to deter illegal crossings. 2 bodies have since been recovered. The DOJ sued Texas, calling for the river barrier to be removed. Later this month, a federal judge will hear the case to determine whether those floating barriers are legal. The group of Democrats have long been critical of the Republican governor's approach. The Republicans say the cost of not having the aggressive deterrent feeds other serious issues.
Among those being trafficked most, children. Unbelievable.
We're going to have to decide, as Texans, what we're going to do about it.
Republicans have disputed the Biden administration's claim that illegal border crossings are down because Republicans say this is due to a change in how data is collected, also a new policy that simply funnels what would be illegal immigrants through the ports of entry. Now, there are a few bipartisan bills here in Congress that address both the immigration reform issue as well as border security, but we have not yet seen any hints from leadership on either the House side with Speaker McCarthy or the Senate side with Senate Leader Chuck Schumer that they're willing to move these bills forward for a bipartisan solution. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Melina Weisskopf.
This has been a complex investigation. Members of this network were using encryption and other methods to avoid law enforcement detection whilst they were sharing videos and files of child abuse material.
Today we celebrate the rescue of 13 children. The success of this operation is only possible because of the close partnership between the FBI, the Australian law enforcement community, to include the state and territory officers.
Police described the network as a criminal ring that shared videos and images of child abuse on the dark web. They allegedly used advanced software to anonymously share files, chat, and access websites. Some offenders were involved for over 10 years, and some knew some of the children, according to the Australian authorities. In 2021, 2 FBI agents were killed while investigating a computer programmer suspected of involvement in the ring.
In which many of them cry out to get out, but nobody cares about them, nobody fights for them, and this bill is about protecting children. That's all this bill was about. And some people made it about political arguments and culture wars. In my perspective, I understand some of the concerns that Assemblymember Isaac Bryan and Bonta were discussing. Concerns around how this could potentially, the 3 strikes clause within this legislation, and how it could impact the victims.
People that have been trafficked,
right,
that they might get arrested because they're getting involved with trafficking others.
Right. I understand the concerns that some of the organizations and the groups, the ACLU and some of the folks that have stood up and said that they're concerned about how victims would be impacted by a 3 strikes clause, by higher criminal penalties. But there were also former victims of child sex trafficking who spoke in favor of this. A matter of fact, at the end of one of the hearings, one victim on the side of the ACLU and some of the groups that were opposing this because they thought it was too harsh, and one of the victims who were supporting this legislation hugged at the end of the hearing because they're both survivors. And so I think what's important is that we have to realize that at the end of the day, no matter how we see this or don't see this, we have to do something. I looked at this bill, I read through it, I thought it was logical, reasonable, and rational. We're talking about repeat offenders who continue to traffic and sell our children, and we have to send a message to them that our children are not for sale. If you sell our children, you will pay the highest criminal penalties of our state.
And Shane, you have a very interesting perspective, unique perspective that a lot of us don't know about. And there is a reason why you got involved with this bill. Can you tell us more?
Well, I spent 13 years in California's child welfare system, getting into it in San Diego County after the losses of my parents, Jose and Kimberly. I came out of a biracial family. My dad was African American, Puerto Rican. My mom was white. My parents had me like a lot of parents, in the beauty of love. They met each other at a club or something like that and fell in love and popped me out in 1992. And, they weren't married. And so what eventually happened is they split. And there was issues that began to happen between them. My mom had drug issues. She came out of the crack era, and she returned to her habits. And my father had done very well at the end of his life. He had became a head chef of a drug treatment facility, but struggled early on in his life with alcohol, and he ended up getting cancer of the liver. When I was 7 years old, he died, and I went into child welfare in San Diego foster care, and was taken into CPS custody. Went to Polinsky Children's Center, which is a facility that holds foster youth until they're picked by a foster family. Somebody come get them and take them to their home. I'll never forget, I was doing all these interviews with the families, because they come to to Polinsky and they interview you one by one, whether they want to take you in or not. That was a very interesting dynamic.
When you were 7, right?
I was 7 years old. And, I went through all the challenges you can think of: gangs, drugs, homelessness, fighting through the instability, because I was going from placement to placement. They take you from foster home to foster home, group home to group home. If you don't get adopted, you really build an unstable environment. You don't know what it's like to be in a family, to be in a home. And so that was my situation. I went from home to home to home. And finally, I ended up in a home in San Diego. But I was transitioning even outside of San Diego, taken up to Vallejo, California at one point, LA County at one point, and then back into San Diego. And there was one home I ended up in particular. There was horrific abuses that were happening. I was expressing my concern to my social worker. There was 5 of us children who were getting abused, neglected. There was tons of concerns. And it seemed like nobody was listening. And then finally, one of my foster siblings went to school with a big gash and on their neck. And the teachers and facility got very concerned, and CPS got involved in the investigation, pulled that foster parent's license, and we were all taken out of the home. So, and I lost my mother when I was 16, which was, very tragic and challenging, but that was bound to happen because of her drug challenges. So when I talk about children and I fight for the well-being of our children, 99% of the time I'm right. And 99% of the time, I can guarantee anybody in this state, I can put my stories up to any legislator, up to the governor, up to anybody in this state, or anybody in this country, because I am an exception to the rule, and it should not be that way. When I was dropped off at 18 years old, downtown San Diego, with a bag of clothes and an emancipation letter, and wished well by a system that was supposed to look out for me like a parent would, I can put my story up to anybody, and I can surely stand up for any child, because no child should be dealing with these issues, especially by a system that claims it can take better care of you than your biological family.
This episode is sponsored by Midas Gold Group.